Welcome back. We got a special guest on the show, ladies and gentlemen. Today's guests are Craig Pasta Jardula and Fiorella Isabel, the co-hosts of the progressive talk show, the Convo Couch, which discusses daily news cycles and introduces new grassroots personalities. Please welcome from Las Vegas, it's Craig Pasta, and from Moscow, it's Fiorella Isabel. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us. I hope you don't get in trouble for having a Russia state-affiliated media figure here.
They're probably going to have to slap that on this video. Russia state-affiliated media. I said, I'll take it. Russia gives their people health care. I'll take it. All right.
They do, Jimmy. I got health care now.
Ha! So you know. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing.
Yes.
All right, I can't find my hand sanitizer anywhere, guys. Do you guys know where I can get some?
Yes, Uvalde cops have a bunch of it.
Oh, got it. Just want to make sure. Sorry. Thank you, Jimmy.
So I wanted to bring you on because you know more about this sort of thing than me. I saw this tweet, and it's from someone named Eli Stokels, and he said, "Extraordinary AMLO," which is the Mexican president. That's his nickname, AMLO. And it stands, and it says, AMLO has been speaking for 25 minutes in the Oval Office, offering Biden a lengthy soliloquy about the New Deal, gas prices, and opportunities for greater economic collaboration. He's still going, and there they are, right? Joe seems to be sleeping.
So, yes.
And he really does. I'm not making that up. And then he says the most awkward part was when AMLO told Biden Mexico was letting Americans cross the border to buy gas because it's $1 cheaper per gallon in Mexico. Biden, when he finally finished after 31 minutes, reminded him that the United States economic growth is leading the world. And scene. So... Here, let me just. So Bloomberg picked this up, and so that what they also want you to know is that Mexico is subsidizing 35% of the fuel costs thanks to an oil bonanza in Mexico. The costs are down to 22 pesos per liter from 34 pesos per liter due to the subsidy, and fuel tax relief costs about 1% of the GDP in 2022, said a chief economist in Mexico. And listen to this. Mexico's President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, AMLO, pledged earlier this year to use the extra income from higher oil export prices to ensure that fuel costs at the pump don't rise more than inflation. So that's a government taking care of its people, and they want to make you think over here that it's, God, see, the government's subsidizing. That's what they should be doing. Because fossil fuels are a natural resource. They should all be nationalized frickin' anyway. Oh, don't get me started. So in the United States, it's the average is $4.66 per gallon. In Mexico, the average is $3.12 per gallon. So let me one last slide here. AMLO also boasts. AMLO boasts include. I like to say he boasted. That's what they like to say it. AMLO's boast included an offer to double the gasoline supply to border gas stations for American consumers, which he explained could help his U.S. counterpart, while lawmakers consider Biden's call to suspend fuel taxes at a time of galloping inflation and economic uncertainty. One more. The Mexican president also said Mexican pipelines could bring fuel to California, Arizona, and New Mexico. He added that Mexico is planning to build liquefied natural gas plants and fertilizer factories with U.S. investment, skating over the rift caused by some of his previous energy reforms. Biden responded with, so let's just bring in Craig and Fiorella on this right at this point. So what do you, to me, I was a little shocked to see a president of Mexico come and lecture the United States president on the New Deal, on gas prices, and showing people how a government can actually help you in a time of crisis. Joe Biden's not going to, our gas isn't $3.14 a gallon. So let me now you know a little bit more about AMLO, and I know he skipped the Joe Biden's big conference in Los Angeles earlier this year, the Conference of the Americas or whatever it was. So go ahead, take it wherever you want to.
Go ahead, fam. Democracy.
All right. Yeah. So Biden skipped the democracy summit, which is why everybody's saying relationships are tense. And he skipped it because they excluded Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba, countries in the Americas, and then instead invited Juan Guaido and Spain to the summit. So he said this was a bad idea. He also skipped it because he disagreed with sanctioning Russia. He said it was a crass error. And he said it was a huge mistake. He condemned the intervention, the so-called intervention of Russia into Ukraine, but he refused to sanction it. So there have been these disagreements foreign policy-wise, as well as the immigration issue. And you raise an important point, Jimmy, right now. It's funny that Joe Biden responded with boasting. And I love how you pointed out that that they call what AMLO is saying boasting. He's literally telling the truth. He's literally saying, by the way, our gas is cheaper in Mexico than it is in the States. So if you guys want to cross the border and get cheaper gas, we're going to facilitate that for you. Instead, what the U.S. is doing to Mexicans is they're not providing temporary work visas, which was a huge portion of this discussion that just happened. Because what happens is you have agricultural farmers, rural workers who come in and they try to make money in California or in other parts of the country seasonally, and then they stay here illegally because they can't go back to Mexico and then come back and work here. So this has been a situation that's long been going on since Bush Jr., and Bush Jr. actually pushed for this. So Mexico, via AMLO, is basically telling Biden, stay away from our like trying to dictate your Monroe Doctrine, which is why he brought up FDR's good neighbor policy, where FDR was pushing to have good relations with Latin American countries, to have a reciprocal, fair relationship. Instead, what Joe Biden and his administration have been pushing is blaming Mexico for a lot of things, including the death of journalists, which he hypocritically called out as how can you guys even say that? First of all, he denied it. And then he brought up Julian Assange on July 4th and said, well, if you're going to give Julian Assange a life sentence for prison, then we might as well take the Statue of Liberty and demolish it because you're not representing anything past that.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that, along with everything that Fiorella just said, one thing that's important to point out is that AMLO actually had a referendum on his position. He actually took it to the people where he allowed them to vote. And this is just like 3 months ago to say, hey, if you think I'm doing a good job, you vote for me and you say that I'll stay in office. You vote and say I'm doing a bad job. Then we'll have snap elections and we'll take it to the people and then you can get yourself a new leader. He won that overwhelmingly. And I think since then he's felt like he's had like the wind at his sails. This is a guy who also nationalized the lithium in the country too as well, which also pissed off the United States. But at the end of the day, all AMLO's moves are all about him gaining national sovereignty. That's what they want. All these countries down in the global south, whether it be South America, Central America, they want to govern themselves. They want to have a right to have a say in what happens with their politics, not just go by what the United States has to say. And, when AMLO first got in, he's got one term. Once again, and for all the ideologues out there that always like, oh, he's not left enough, this is a third-party president. Again, this is the first time this party, the Moreno party, has ever held power. So I think we should stop telling these people, that they're not left enough, especially when we can't, create our own movement of leftists here in the United States. We should just shut up. But AMLO's done an amazing job, and it's all about the push for national sovereignty. So, I'll talk about my issues with the media and all that other stuff later as we get into it. But this is a move for national sovereignty, and I think that AMLO is actually gaining some form of sovereignty that Mexico has never had in the past.
So there was a third party. When did they form? Do you know?
I know they formed a couple years ago. I know he's run before and didn't win. But the two parties that had ruled in Mexico had ruled since the 1920s.
Right.
Yeah, the tree and the pan.
Yeah.
So very much like the United States, and then all of a sudden AMLO comes out of this third party, like very much with Greece with the Syriza party. Is that how you say it? And they took they came out of nowhere in just a couple of years. They took power. So and that's what that doesn't get reported in the United States because the establishment doesn't want you to know that a third party can actually come out of nowhere and create steam very quickly. And that's the last thing they want you to know. So here's what Joe Biden said back. Biden responded with a little boasting of his own, saying that the United States is the fastest growing major economy in the world, and that since he took office, the country has created 8.5 million jobs in ways like there should be a laugh track to this. There should be a laugh track to this stuff. And China is not only going to be the factory of the world, he said. You're in the factory of the world, Joe Biden said. He called the United States the factory of the world. That's what Joe Biden said. He said, you're in the factory of the world, the United States. We produce more agricultural product than anything close to what they do. So that's Joe
Using
Biden.
Who? Well, that's another point, right? Using who? Like a lot of these Mexican workers, wouldn't it be easier to just give these people temporary visas? And wouldn't that, because a lot of these people, and this is straight from people that live in Mexico, they don't want to live in the United States. It's much cheaper to live in Mexico, as we can see. Their families are there. If you provide them temporary visas, they're going to go back to their country. So what has been this thing? And by the way, under Joe Biden, there's been more deportations than under Donald Trump.
Oh, no.
And nobody's talking about it.
No, how could that possibly be? I was told I was a bad person if I didn't vote for Joe Biden because of kitchen cases and immigrants. And it turns out, of course, what I try to explain to people is the reason why the establishment hates Donald Trump so much isn't because Donald Trump governed any differently than Barack Obama, George Bush, or now Joe Biden, but because he made people realize what horrible shit our government is doing because people saw a monster like him doing it, so they paid attention, and Donald Trump wasn't able to deport as many Hispanics as Barack Obama was, not even almost half as many. Why? Because local municipalities then became aware of our immigration policy and they stopped working with ICE. So people then did become, exactly as I predicted, became aware of the horrible stuff we're doing. And now that Donald Trump is gone, nobody's complaining about the kids in cages anymore or our immigration policy because Joe Biden doesn't tweet mean things. And so Joe Biden is back to deporting more Hispanics than Donald Trump, and no one cares. And there's more kids in those cages, and no one cares. Bob, let me throw it back to you.
Well, Villanueva, right here in LA, where I used to be, he stopped working with ICE. That was a big reason the numbers went down, and yet he's still vilified on a regular basis, his attitude with the cops and whatnot. And I understand, but that's a big reason, but the reason why people still come here is because Joe Biden has also doubled down on the same policies that Donald Trump had, Barack Obama had, George Bush had in the global South, where he's causing a lot of uproars and, the United States imperialist apparatus. We have 80 military bases in the global South. That's going to always lead to more migration to the United States. But if we would just step back and allow these countries to, govern themselves like AMLO is doing, I think we'd see a lot less migration coming to the United States.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just another quick thing, the lithium that Pasta mentioned, AMLO tried to nationalize the energy in Mexico. He tried to nationalize it. He fell slightly short, but he was able to nationalize the lithium in April of this year. And it basically made lithium a higher type of property for a resource for Mexicans. So it's not exploited by the outside. And obviously the United States and multinational corporations didn't like that. But he also talked about expanding it to Central and South America. And he's building relationships with these countries now. And I don't know if you noticed, but this is what's happening in general, because now, because of this Russia-Ukraine situation, everybody's like jumping on against the West and jumping against NATO because they have like each other's back and they're building relationships with other countries. And the United States is crying to Venezuela saying they need oil, but while simultaneously refusing to recognize their president and continuing to sanction them and continuing to have their gold. So this whole situation is like a huge pushback against the United States. And now the United States is purposely, it seems, you could argue, sinking the working class of their own country to prove a point against Russia, to say, oh, let's show Putin what? We're at a 40-year high record inflation. We have the highest gas prices. We have, I mean, the stock market is tanking, even crypto is tanking, everything is tanking. And he dares say that, you know, the United States is doing the best. By the way, you guys just saw the admission by John Bolton and how
we're going to talk about that next.
Cooing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Joe Biden saying that America's got the strongest major economy in the world is like saying you're the skinniest kid at fat camp. So, all right. Well, let's wrap up this segment. Can you stick around? I actually want to show that videotape of John Bolton.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Can I just point out one small thing too, as well? Because when you see the mainstream media, they always do what they do. You know, they manufacture consent for, you know, involvement with the United States. The one thing that they're pointing out right now that's really kind of making my ears perk and is making me a little scared is the fact that the mainstream media in the United States is mentioning that a lot of fentanyl is coming up through Mexico, supposedly by the cartels. Now, a lot of the fentanyl was coming over from China, but I can just see them using the excuse of a fentanyl death of somebody of them using the excuse to manufacture consent to go and get themselves involved in Mexico. So that's something I just want to kind of alert the press to, because the cartels have taken on the making and distributing of fentanyl coming up into the United States and unfortunately killing a lot of people.
Okay. So yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. They'll use any reason. I mean, we'll intervene in countries across the ocean. Why wouldn't we intervene in a country right next to us? Here we're going to Sacramento, back here in Los Angeles, Bakersfield, Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our shows.